Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Ara-maic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Ara-maic, Rahma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
And the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. And we're not real sure what happened yesterday. We kind of got lost in the time zone, but then so it was going to put us a couple minutes late getting in, and by the time we got in, it said there wasn't a show. So we apologize for any of you that were hanging out there waiting to see if we would do something. And we're on, I believe today is day 44 of Memorial Day. And the call-in number before I turn it over to Michael is 646-200-4169, and we would love to hear your call. Michael, hi.
Hi, sweetie. Hot day in Kansas City. I'm actually sitting out in the back lot of a Kansas City Freightliner dealer where we're picking up our Sprinter van after having a recall done on...
Michael, you need to pull your speaker closer. It's muffled.
Muffled. Is that better?
A little bit, yeah.
Better? Not much?
A little bit. Go for it.
Okay. Is that going to do it all right?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, fabulous. So anyway, day 40, what number was it, Jeanie?
44.
44. Okay. Auspicious day, 44, master number. And if you're new to the show, that celebration of Memorial Day is our invitation. This is the 44th day out from Memorial Day, and we decided that day, instead of celebrating with beer and getting drunk and making hamburgers on a grill, that we would invite people to do some forgiveness work. And let's start individually and collectively evaporating the reasons for war on planet Earth. Let's truly honor those who have been murdered, forced to murder, been maimed, injured, and brought those injuries, emotional scars home with them, and impacted everybody in the country. And, of course, everybody in the globe has been impacted by that insanity called war. So why do we have war? Well, if we hold hostility or fear, we'll always find somebody to blame. And the ultimate extreme, of course, if somebody to blame is it's all their fault, so if I just get rid of them, things will get better. Well, our offering is things never get better because of war. Things just get more war, get more crazy. And our invitation is to pick up the forgiveness tool and begin to change whatever hostility or fear is in you and reclaim your human life. You know, we open our workshop these days with the question, how many have ever held a newborn child? If you want to know what a human life is, hold a newborn. You'll know exactly what human life is made of. And the hostilities and fears that the world structures into us have just about taken over human life and just about taken over the world, which is why we've been pretty much in continuous war on the planet for all of recorded history. Our invitation to you is to go to the website, www.whyagain.com. Right inside, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. First 3 links there are the forgiveness process. How do you change the hostilities and fears that reside within your physiology so that you actually function as a human being, as the active presence of love, 24/7, 365. That's what we're here to support you in. And so, Jeanie, do we have any callers, any comments in the chat room? Anybody want to start off with the theme for today?
Nothing yet.
I talked with Dr. Tim a little earlier and shared that he had some things to talk about. So, see where we go from here. Jeanie, do you have your mute on? I can't hear you if you're speaking.
Are we there? Michael?
Hello?
Tim, you're on.
Well,
Hello.
David, how are you this morning? Are you with us?
Tim's here. Can you
Yeah,
hear
I
me?
feel like I'm out here on an island all by myself.
Tim, I can hear you.
What's happening?
Apparently, I can hear you.
Okay, so Jeanie can hear me, but Michael can't.
Guess we'll just go ahead. I don't know what's
Hold on
happening.
a minute. Let me see if I can
Sound,
get here.
On the road, technical difficulties are sometimes fun to deal with, and we may have some others going on. But in any event, my thought today was to talk a little bit about stress. We do a workshop called Getting the Stress You Need. And we live in a culture that's given stress a bad rap, that made stress the problem in the world. And our offering is that, in fact, stress is absolutely your best friend if you know how to create it. And stress is absolutely your worst enemy if you don't know how it is, but you are creating it, and you don't know how to get rid of the stresses that you never needed in your life in the first place. So the offering here is that without stress, you'd be dead. Without stress, you wouldn't do any behavior. All behavior is related to stress. Once you understand that, then you realize what the cause of stress is. And over the years, I've sat in lots of people's workshops where we talked about stress, but I've never been able to hear a definition of it from any of the experts. We have a definition for you. Stress is the difference between the way you want it to be and either the way it is or the way you see it. So when you see things a certain way in the world, your perception may be totally accurate, and if you want it to be different than that, then there will be stress, which is a good thing because that's what motivates you to move things and to do behaviors to bring alignment to the way you want it to be and the way that you see it or the way it is. The reason why we distinguish between the way you see it or the way it is because sometimes we don't really see things the way they are. We see them with our own biases. And when we see things with a bias, it doesn't matter how much behavior we do, we can try to move things into alignment with the way we want it to be. But if our perception's off base, it becomes very difficult to change the dynamic. But however it goes, when you recognize the difference between the way you want it and the way it is, or the way you see it, the thing that determines your stress, then you're in total control of how much stress you're under. The bigger the difference is between the way you want it to be and the way it is or the way you see it, the more stress you will experience. So if there's a huge difference between the way you see it, the way it is, and the way you want it to be, then you'll be under a huge amount of stress. That becomes a motivator to action. And if your perception is off base and you're not seeing things the way they are, then it becomes very difficult to ever get out of that stressful posture. And the offering is that whenever hostility or fear is active in your mind, that hostility or fear prevents you from doing behaviors with which to bring things into alignment, the way you want it to be with the way it is or the way you see it. When you begin to apply the forgiveness tool, the reality management tool, what happens is if your perception is off base, and anytime you're in hostility or fear, your perception's off base, if your perception is off base, then when you forgive, you will collapse the root of that perception, which will give you the opportunity to get closer to the truth about the way that it actually is in the world. And so that's the first step in understanding how to get into alignment and how to manage your stress. If you go back 2,000 years ago, you'll hear a statement made in the ancient scriptures that says, "Sufficient for the day are the evils thereof." Once you recognize that, then you have, once you understand what that was originally saying in Ara-maic, because sufficient for the day are the evils thereof, what sense does that make? In the Ara-maic language, the word evil there is properly translated as unripened or incomplete. One of the ways to translate the word evil out of the Ara-maic, as opposed to the Greek idea, the Greek translation of some horrible, awful thing, the word evil simply means unripened or incomplete. And if we're in an unripened or an incomplete state, i.e., there's something we want to change. There's a project we have in the world, and it's not the way we want it to be. So when The Master said, sufficient for the day are the evils thereof. He was saying, don't overload yourself with the stresses of tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, because if you do, you'll become overloaded with stress and use up all your resources. So recognizing that, what was being said was, don't have any goals for anything more than the next waking period. Now, we live in a culture that says, load yourself up with goals. Have your 1-day goals, your 1-week goals, your 1-month goals, your 1-year goals, your 10-year goals, your lifetime. Have them all in alignment there. And if you do that, then you will be overloaded with stress continuously. And one of the ways that you can tell somebody's overloaded with stress is they procrastinate. You ever procrastinate? Well, if you procrastinated, there's a reason. You've got too much stress. And your mind is saying, I don't have the resources to deal with this. I quit. So by managing your stresses properly, you have as wide a range of skills and resources available to support you in bringing your life into alignment with the way you would like it to be. So what we offer to people, there's a DVD that we have called Getting the Stress You Need, and we actually have a program called Laws of Living we'll be doing this summer. It's a 16-day intensive that will start off in early August. And a big focus in that Laws of Living course is the stress management process, stress management worksheet. There is a worksheet on the website. Again, if you go to www.whyagain.com, on the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. Of course, that's where you'll find the forgiveness process. The first 3 links will give you the explanation from my book of forgiveness. It'll give you the worksheet itself, the reality management 7-step process, and it'll give you a link to an MP3 where you can listen to us guide someone through the process of forgiveness, the reality management worksheet process. So you can do that, but then a little further down you'll find a link that says the mind goal management worksheet. That's the one that ties in with this thing of stress. And the whole idea is that if you frame goals for tomorrow before you go to sleep, don't set them, just frame them. Just kind of get them set up and have in mind where you're going to head tomorrow. And you go to sleep having no goals whatsoever except for deep, restful sleep. And what happens is you'll be inclined to do what you need to do to get deep, restful sleep. If you go to bed with goals for, the rest of your life operating, then probably you're one of those people that your mind just never shuts up. It runs, it runs, it runs. It just goes on and on and on. I can't tell you how many people over the years, it takes me an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to go to sleep, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and then my mind won't be quiet again. Well, the mind's just doing its job. The mind is doing exactly what it's designed to do, and that is to give you behaviors with which to bring into alignment the way it is and the way you want it to be. That means the way you want it to be is a goal. And if before you go to sleep you cancel all goals, what will happen is you'll sleep stress-free. Your mind will shut up, and lo and behold, all of a sudden life becomes a different game. So that's the direction we want to head. Let me check with Jeanie, see if she's back on the line, and if she's got any comments in the chat room or any callers. Jeanie?
Michael, can you hear me now? Apparently he can't. I'm going to try to get a hold of his son who is with him. Excuse us, everybody who's on the phone, and see if we can get his speaker working.
Jeanie, are you with us? Hello, Jeanie. David. Tim, hello. Am I by myself here? I guess I am.
Well, you aren't, but you think you are.
Oh, okay. What's happening?
Oh, you can hear me now.
I can hear you, yes, sir.
Okay, well, Jeanie was trying to get through to you. I was trying to get through to you, but apparently you couldn't hear us before.
Okay.
So she was going to be calling your son.
Okay, well, there she is on the phone calling him, I think. He's in the car with me. So we got an answer back here. So I don't know, technical difficulties. Anyway, anything happening in the chat room, Tim?
No, I'm the only one typing in there. There are several other people listening in. We have 8 or 9 people and I don't know if anybody else is on the phones, but we're hanging out here. I finally got power back at my office after not having it for over 24 hours.
Ouch, what happened?
Well, a big storm came through yesterday morning and wiped out more trees and more power and cell towers than anything in the past 10 or 12 years around here.
Wow, that's crazy.
So
this weather stuff is really bizarre, isn't it?
Yep. It's quite interesting. So our power came back on about 10 this morning, and yesterday when I was calling you, I was on my cell phone because we didn't have any power in the office.
Right.
And so I couldn't get on and check whether or not the system was up. But anyway, things are going well, and
cool.
You had talked about, you had asked me, if I had a topic, and one of the topics that I had can kind of fit in here is the idea that there's a book written by a gentleman titled Jesus Was Not a Christian. And this is a gentleman who was a minister and a Baptist minister, and finally came to realize that wasn't those religions and those procedures and rituals weren't ever going to give him the peace he needed. And so he wrote this book. He's been doing work for the past number of years with the ancient Ara-maic, and the book strikes me as being very angry for the whole first half of the book. And
you mean where the author is angry?
The author is very angry. He's upset about how Jesus and what he taught was hijacked, and in its place we were given a series of rituals, and thou shalt this, and thou shalt not this.
Right.
And so the author has a tremendous set of goals and stress around the way things have been versus the way they really are.
Right.
So somewhere about page 189, he finally says, I've had a lot of anger issues in my life, and I even had to rewrite portions of this book because they were too angry.
Wow.
So
that's hard.
So it fits in with what you're saying, because if I hold the goal for things to be other than the way they are, it creates a tremendous amount of stress, and it might motivate me to change things. But if I'm holding a goal for someone or something else, then that's something I can't change, and so I just lock myself into that prison of unrelenting stress.
Right. And hostility and fear.
A lot of hostility.
Yeah, and we have talked about this book once before, and my offering is that if I'd have written it, the title would have been Yeshua was the only Christian, because most of what's being followed is based in hostility and fear, and the teaching was based in love. What's happened is the fear-based mind has looked at the teachings on love and interpreted it through fear, and it's time for us to get past that and awaken from the hostility and fear-based mind, because one of the interesting things that we notice is that when somebody is in hostility and fear, when they load a goal in their mind the way they want it to be, and that goal accesses hostility or fear, of course it creates a stress, because the stress created, the mind cannot guide that person away to relieve their own stress. It's kind of like this person who's stuck in the quicksand. You can't get out by themselves out there. We're struggling. We're stuck in the insane hostility and fear-based mind. We need a hand up and a hand out. And of course, the hand up and the hand out is another fear-based mind. The hand up and the hand out is one. Hold the space of love, we can show how to relieve the hostility and fear and bring us back to our actual human mind.
So Michael?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you can hear me, you just started fading as you were talking. You started out nice and loud, and then you faded as you talked.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There you are. You're back. That's much better.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm sitting in exactly the same position, but I guess cell phone signals.
Yeah, and there was some background noise for you. I could hear what you were saying, but you were getting fainter as you went on.
Oh, really?
So
anyway, go ahead.
my offering is that, as we've talked about before, that when we go to look at something and it isn't the way we want it to be, our first priority should be, if we've been exposed to this work, for me to keep my focus on my source as love and watch and monitor for any hostility or fear that I create in my thinking and dismantle that. And then, once I've done that, from that space of love, I will be able to see more clearly what I do have control over that I might change to help correct something. And Guy Finley had a beautiful offering in a blog entry last week when this mother was acquitted for this the death of her child, and his offering was very much the same thing. Keep your thoughts in the loving space and then take the next right steps to correct a problem. But if you buy into the hostility and fear, you're just adding to the problem, and you won't see clearly what to do to improve the situation.
Precisely.
You'll see what to do to hurt, attack, and abuse someone else, but you won't see what to do to extend the love.
Yeah, love of truth without the condition of what was called Rockma, love in the mind, leads to rage and destruction toward whatever it is that's objected to. And, of course, rage and destruction is what most people are raging over. And it's an interesting oxymoron, and that, you know, you look at the genius of the mind of Yeshua, who offered that keeping the condition of love present was the first law, because that's how we maintain a human life, and that's how we maintain our connection to Source and aliveness, instead of destroying ourselves with hostilities and fears. So definitely key. Now, Tim, you did a presentation, which I think is probably still on your website. Maybe you want to give your website, and you did a presentation on stress just a few weeks ago. Maybe you want to give it, and people could go give a listen to it. It's a nice presentation.
Thank you. That the website is www.c as in cat, h as in hat, the number 4, c as in cat, s as in sam.com. ch, the number 4, cs.com. And on the left-hand side, there are 3 different presentations I've given recently, and you can listen to the audio. There's about a 16-minute presentation that uses your material on stress and mind goal management and incorporates some things from The Way of Mastery and from Guy Finley. And so it's
awesome.
I keep hearing I had that was over a month ago that I gave that presentation. I'm sorry, it was 2 months ago I think I gave that presentation, and last Friday I was in that group again, and 2 more people came up to me and mentioned how useful that mind goal management strategy has been for them in the past 2 months. So thank you for that.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, it is an awesome tool. It is a real key to getting the mind back on track. And folks, you can go to whyagain.com under download worksheets and download that mind goal management sheet, which is kind of self-explanatory, but kind of not. There is a DVD called Getting the Stress You Need, which goes into detail on the worksheet. There's a bit of a challenge with using that sheet because there's actually a morning and an evening process to do with the sheet. And when you're first starting, of course, there's a presumption that you either did the night before or the morning before. And so you have to start in the middle, and so it takes a little figuring out, but the DVD explains that, and it's relatively intuitive if you understand that wherever you start on that worksheet, there's a presumption you did the previous step, so you just kind of have to make it up as you start in the middle and then get into the routine of using it. And over the years, I've had many people that told me it's totally changed their lives. One of the interesting things I've seen happen in, for instance, intensive, where we do the Laws of Living course and present that mind goal management process, especially with salespeople who have been taught goals. You got to meet your quota. You got to your daily, your weekly, your monthly, your yearly, your annual, your blah blah blah. is that they've been able to use that sheet and have a quiet mind and actually go to sleep just by laying down and closing their eyes for the first time in their memory, because all of a sudden they get to sleep stress-free. It's an awesome thing to have, is the ability to just close your eyes and go to sleep, not have to cope with a mind that won't stop. And again, if your mind won't stop when you're ready for it to stop, if it won't obey your command, it's because you've loaded goals in it. And its job, the functioning purpose of the mind is to manage stress. Whenever you set a goal, you create a stress. You give your mind a job to do, and if your mind just keeps running, and of course if you've been doing that all your life, which a lot of people do with no idea that's what's going on, your mind's going to run for a while until you unload all of those goals. And we have genetic goals, we have goals from childhood. It's an interesting thing to see that there are only two ways to get rid of a goal once you put it into the mind. One is you either achieve the goal, or the second, the only other way to get rid of that goal is to cancel it. Interestingly enough, the word forgive in Ara-maic is shebag, or at least the word that's been translated forgive is shebag, and it literally translates to cancel. It has to do with canceling goals. When you're in upset, when you're in disturbance, if you are willing to shebag, willing to cancel a goal and get rid of the stress of the moment that keeps the mind set up with its current hostility and fear, then what will happen is you'll get to look at the root of that hostility and fear that perhaps in your whole life has never been looked at. And once you look it directly in the face, if it doesn't serve you, you then have the ability to change it. If you don't cancel the goal, then the tendency will be to never look at the underlying dynamic that keeps you stressed. And, major complaint with doctors, two complaints. One is, Doc, I'm stressed. The other one is, Doc, I'm tired. And of course, if people run 24/7, 365, loaded with stress, of course they're going to be tired. Your brain takes about 10 times the amount of oxygen nutrition any other organ in the body. The person who sits behind a desk and really uses their brain is using just as much as the athlete uses in terms of energy to keep that brain operational. And if it's running 24/7, 365, then you know what sufficient for the day are the evils thereof. You know what that means. You know that you've been overloaded with stress, and you've got to get rid of that stress. And the way you do it is by canceling the goal. So our suggestion to you, especially if you load a goal in your mind, where when you load that goal, it accesses some form of hostility or fear in you, that you cancel that goal. And when you cancel it, that gives you the ability to start to remove the stress, the thing that makes you stupid. Well, what do you mean Michael makes me stupid? When I'm angry, I get good things done. Yeah, but, when we open a workshop, Jeanie will ask a question, opening question, and why is this happening to me again? It's always, how many have ever held a newborn child? And then she asks people to describe the nature of the newborn, the essence of the newborn. And everybody's answer everywhere on the planet is always some variation on the theme of love. Why? Because everybody on the planet knows what human life is. And then she asks a second question. So she'll make a list on the board of the answers to that question, and it's awesome, beauty, peace, purity, love, sensibility, sweetness. It's always some variation on the theme of love. But then Jeanie asks a second question. Her second question is, how many have ever done something they regret? And what were you feeling when you did what you regretted? And then she starts another list. And the answers never include the word love. What were you feeling when you did what you regretted? It's always rage, fear, grief, sadness, anger, greed, envy, terror. They're all words based in hostility or fear. When you link a goal in your mind, when you load a goal in your mind and that goal links to some form of hostility or fear, you are now locked into a lower intelligent state of mind. A mind in hostility or fear is pretty stupid. And I'm saying that we've asked this question of tens of thousands of people all over the globe. 100% of the time when people say, I did something I regretted, there's always some form of hostility or fear at the root of the regret. The words they said, the behavior they did, came from a mind linked to hostility or fear. That's because they were under stress. They were under stress because they loaded a goal. When they loaded the goal accessed hostility or fear that they'd not resolved. And when that hostility or fear was activated, their intelligence was reduced and they did something they regretted. You will never do a truly high-level behavior out of hostility or fear. And so what we suggest that you do is you forgive. You cancel your goals whenever they link to hostility or fear, process through the hostility or fear, and then go back and set the goal again, if it's an appropriate goal to set. And when you stay connected to love in the presence of that goal, you'll be in your highest state of intelligence, your highest capability. And that's what we're here to support you in, your highest state of intelligence and capability. Forgiveness is the key to doing that. Forgiveness is the key to getting back to a truly human life where the active presence of love literally happens in every cell of your structure. And there's usually a lot of canceling, a lot of forgiving to do. When they asked the master teacher of forgiveness 2,000 years ago, well, how many of these worksheets do we have to do? How many times do we need to do this forgiveness thing? 7 enough? The answer in Ara-maic was no, 77 times 70. An infinite number till you're complete with it. And we live in a culture that loves for you to be in hostility or fear because you're controllable there. If you start to move out of it, you're a much, much more flexible, capable, intelligent person. Jeanie, I think I heard you back there. Do we have any callers or any comments in the chat room to be aware of?
No, I was just getting ready to tell you faded out again, but you're back on,
really?
And there's no questions, not any conversation going on. Everybody's just sitting there.
Okay. Well, probably we've got, I'm out in a place where we've got a cell signal that just kind of fades in and out and comes around every once in a while. That sort of happens on cells. I'm out in, where are we, Michael J? Olathe, Kansas? Yeah, no lake here?
Missouri.
We're in northern Kansas City. And sitting here while they're doing a little more work on our van that we came to pick up 2 hours ago. And haven't gotten out of here yet. So, anyway. So, one of the things that ties in with our conversation is, Jeanie actually in an intensive a little while back, Jeanie was brought up on a farm and is very familiar with farm animals. And she made the point of, put blinders on a horse for a reason. And what we find is that the authorities in our world put blinders on us for a reason. If a horse has got 360-degree vision, all it has to do is, tilt its head a little bit to see way over to the right where that filly is, or way over to the left where those oats are. And that horse has got the choice to go for one or the other or plow a straight line for you. Chances are the filly's going to win over your desire for a straight line to be plowed. Or chances are, if he's hungry, he's going to head for the oats. So what do people do on a farm in order to keep the horse focused and plowing a straight line? Put a set of blinders on him. Nice big leather patch over in front of each eye so that you can't look too far to the right, you can't look too far to the left. All you can do is see straight ahead. Our offering in this work is that when we come into the world as love, we have 360-degree vision. We're in touch with everything in every direction all the time. When we disconnect from that presence of love, when we move into hostility or fear, it's just like putting a set of blinders on. And you'll notice that there are forces in our world that want you structured and living out of hostility or fear. There's just no question about that. People say, well, Michael, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. Well, there's no theory, folks. You can check it out for yourself. It's easy to see if there's a conspiracy to structure people out of hostility or fear. It's so easy. In fact, you can do it right now. You can do it before this show is over. You can check it out for yourself. You're probably, if you're at home, where there's a television set, as you're listening to the show, turn the television set on, have a piece of paper and draw a straight line down one side of the page, about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the page. So you got a 1/4 inch margin there. And don't spend any more than 3 minutes on any television station. Just flip from station to station to station. And every time you hear a word that represents what we were talking about, the list that Jeanie puts on the right side of the board, hostility or fear, put a check mark on the page. And every time you hear a word that is actually representative of the awesome presence of a human life, love, put a check mark on the page. I guarantee that you'll fill out 10 pages with check marks about hostility or fear before you'll get a quarter-inch column filled out of love. Is that documentation enough for you? There are forces who want you with blinders on. You know, if you've got 360-degree vision, you got a lot of choices. Just like the horse who doesn't have blinders on, sees the filly over there, sees the oats over there, and they're off after it. Well, in your being, you have 360-degree vision. You put a set of blinders on a horse's vision is cut down to about maybe 40, 50 degrees. Hostility over the left eye, fear over the right eye, and you've got a human being that is set with a set of blinders. And when you have a set of blinders on, you can't see what's possible. You can only see what's set in front of you. And, you know, what this culture oftentimes sets in front of us is pretty bizarre, pretty outrageous. And so it's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to take the blinders off. Get your mind restored to its proper power supply. You, I would offer, are designed to live as the active presence of love. David, are you still with us? David, are you there?
I am, Michael.
Oh, good. Well, I was just checking in to see if you had a thought or two to add from the times you've done Laws of Living and the Mind Goal Management Sheet and watched the video, Getting the Stress You Need. Any comments or thoughts?
You know, my comment and thought is along this line. You have to put the pen to the... You have to take a worksheet. You have to take one of the tools, and you just have to apply it in your life. That way, then you to have a different experience, different insights from that. You know, if I continue doing the same things, I'm going to continue doing the same things. It's really about putting some things into action. It's wonderful information, and until the person really applies it to their life, to them, to their self, it's just more conversation in some respects. So it's good to gather the information and to apply the information. I think that's one of the things, I know it's one of the things that you and I had talked about prior to my arrival here at Heartland, is that we need to, at some stage, we need to teach it. And really who my projection of it is, who I'm teaching is myself. I do need another person there in order for me to reflect it back off and to listen to. And it really is about me applying it into my life. When I apply it into my life, then I'm able to have the experience of it and then to go on to the next step. Otherwise, you know, it's kind of like back and forth with it. I'm reminded, the thought that comes to my mind is being involved in 12-step programs. There's a lot of people that are involved in 12-step programs, and from my experience, most people stay on the first 3 steps of a 12-step program. It's 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, and it's back and forth, and there's 12 steps to it, just like that there's steps in a process to go through here. And I just encourage and invite people to put the pen to the paper and to call in with the challenges, because the truth of it is that until it gets surfaced to my consciousness, until someone does that, then they'll only be able to see it in the way that they've been seeing it. So,
right. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah, the use of the tools definitely are a requirement.
Yep.
It's interesting how often we see people show up and refuse to use the tools, but can tell us how exactly it should be done, and usually out of a hostile or fearful mind. It's an interesting process, how that works, and how to get ourselves back on track. It's quite a challenge to do. Tim, do you have any other thoughts on the topic as we're discussing it? Or Jeanie, do you have any thoughts for us? I know you've got a lot of work around that worksheet. In fact, I know you've got a session later today with folks and working with people with the tools. Any thoughts for us?
No, it's just a matter of, it's new to most people. The worksheet's different, a different way of looking at it, different terminology than the culture says, forgiveness. And so it's getting people to look at that what they hold internally is what they can change. And it totally changes the way you see things outside. And I've used this example before, but there was some issues that I had been working on about not being listened to. And then I had done several worksheets on it. And there was not a certain point where it was like, oh, okay, I'm done with that. It was not a great realization that, okay, I'd finished it. However, we were at another all-day workshop, and I was putting in my 2 cents. And when we took a lunch intermission, a girl came up to me, and she was like, she wanted to talk to me, and she's like, did you not notice that guy, you were talking to him, and he wasn't even paying attention to you? He wasn't listening to you. And it had not even come into my awareness that he wasn't listening to me. So that was awesome that she pointed it out, because that showed me that I had reached a point where that issue, which was an internal issue, had changed. And the same thing was going on in my external world, but I was like an observer. I had no emotional attachment to it. So there had been a shift internally. And so there was not an upset or a concern or anything like that, whereas in the past it would have been. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome that you showed me that. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, but perhaps you've got some worksheets to do around it, because it definitely brought something up for her. So it is a process of working through to be able to change internally how we react to some external situation. And we can't change the external situation necessarily, but we can change the way we look at it from the inside.
Awesome. Tis true.
It
Michael?
It brings up for me the idea that if I hold a goal, that's going to drive my internal experience. And the image I got was, if I'm watching one of those National Geographic pictures of the lion on the plains and the lion is stalking the gazelle, if I have the goal for the gazelle to survive, I experience this whole thing very, very differently than if I have the goal for the lion to get food for her cubs.
Right.
It's the same experience, but my goals held relative to that experience are going to determine my experience of it in the moment. And that's true with every moment of my life. And that's why I think this mind goal management process and the reality management worksheet process are so powerful. If I can gain that realization that I'm creating my reality by what I choose to focus my attention on in each moment and the goals I set for myself, and then have tools like the ones that are provided on your website, it is a life changer.
Definitely a life changer, for sure. And the whole idea of how goals drive perception is just so misunderstood or so lacking in our culture. People think, well, I just perceive as I perceive, and that's just the way it is out there. And we don't perceive the way it is out there. We perceive the way it is in here. And if it's based in hostility or fear, then it's always an off-base advice that our mind is giving us. And so the thing that, when we're under stress, the way I want it to be and the way it is or the way I see it, I'm always in charge of the way I want it to be. I can always change that goal. And, there's another piece is Yeshua 2,000 years ago is teaching stress management. He says, there's a power in this universe that is here to give you absolutely everything that you want. You know what? Before you even ask for it, it's going to come to you. And it's interesting how a lot of people are sitting around going, well, Creator, this should be different. This shouldn't be the way it is. This should be different. Creator, you need to change things around here. It's like, well, maybe the way the universe works is delivering to each of us at every moment exactly what we need to look at our painful responses and be able to change them, to be able to forgive them, rather than be stuck in them. So if I sit in insistence that, this situation be different, I can be all tied up in knots and stress and blood pressure through the roof, et cetera, and that does nothing to change what's happening, does nothing to change my behavior. When I recognize this is delivered to me for a reason, again, Yeshua says, before you ask, Creator knows what you need. Sent it to you. It's already on your doorstep. But if you have a different idea of it, then stress and strain and put yourself in a knot and lose resources and capacity. Once we recognize that things are delivered to us and, we say, I'm only upset because of this happening. It's like, no, you're not upset because of this happening. You're upset because you're upsetting you. And guess what? As long as you hold that upset, whatever it is going to keep showing up because that's what you need. It's what will show you the upset. And when it shows you the upset, you have the option of changing the upset. When you do, oftentimes you'll find that the situations in your life that you seem to be upset about all of a sudden disappear. They change. They become something different. So it's a pretty awesome process.
I think David had a comment he wanted to make.
Are you with us,
Well,
David?
once again, I am with you. And once again, I was referring to...
David, have I told you lately we're glad you're with us?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Just want to make sure.
So there's a lot of conversations that go on and a lot of points of view, and I do understand that is all part of the process as well. And once again, I emphasize that until a person puts something into action, no matter how small it is. So I received an email from my son, one of my sons, Ryan, today, and I was just checking with him, and what he said to me was, along this line of the stress, before I talked with him last week, and I invited him to sheet of mind goal management, and to, if nothing else, to practice going to sleep at night, of canceling the goals, whether he did the sheet or not, beginning somewhere, and to practice breathing 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. So my email from him, back from him, was that he's doing his breath work. So to me, that just opens up the space for him to then be able to see, as the expression goes, what's the definition of insanity, to keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different results. And today I was listening to a show that Colin from the Ian Lindgold, I talked with him today on the phone. Not Lindgold, Carl, and he had a conference call where a lady was on there and was talking about a lot of about the energy. And what Carl had said was that today is the end of the fourth day. In other words, the night, that we're now going in night for the next, I think he said 90 days or something like that, 80 or 90 days.
You're talking about the Mayan calendar now?
I'm talking calendar. And so it was an insightful program. There were several things that I saw from it, and at the end of it, it really was all about, to me, my projection of it, and reality was about, good, so what are we going to do? What's anybody doing? What are you going to do as a individual? We talk about this every day with what are we doing as an individual? One little thing, as an individual, what am I going to do today to create peace by next Memorial Day? What is it that I'm going to do? And I emphasize once again, it is about doing. there is, without the doing part of it, nothing changes, no matter what. And the tools, and I thought about this program, and I've emailed him back and invited him to get in contact with you, Michael, and maybe be on the show sometime, or maybe be on this show. And I heard you talk about that, we can have all of the tools. You've created the tools, and as you said at the beginning of it, life without tools is hell. And to me, life with tools and not using it, still hell. Still hell. Still have to put the pen in paper. So that was my thoughts around all of it. What needs to happen in support of applying the tools in the life. And I invite the audience that's out there listening, if you are applying the tool, great. Share with us what it is that's evolving, for to me that's part of the teaching. Without my expression of it, without my talking with someone else about it and processing through, I could sometimes get stuck in that and think that, that I've shifted out of there. In reality, in actuality, I haven't. So let's put the pen to the paper. Anything in the chat room? Anybody have any comments? Stir anything up?
Definitely on track. And our phone number, if anybody has a question or a comment about what we're talking about, is area code 646-200-4169. And you can call in and make a comment. Once you get on the line, once you get an answer there, if you just press 1, that will put a little hand up in the control room that Jeanie is in charge of there, and she'll go, we've got a caller who wants to make a comment or has a question. We love to hear your questions. That's an important part of what makes the show move forward. It inspires it to keep moving in the direction of serving people, because if you have a question, there are probably at least another 24 on the show that have the same question, and you'll get to support them having an answer. And or it may be me or David or Tim that has the question. We haven't thought of that question yet. You bring it forward, and all of a sudden, bang, we get the opportunity to tap in and get the answer to that. So we'd love to hear from you. Jeanie, are there any callers or any comments in the chat room?
No.
No. That's it. Okay.
Well, there was the one comment in the chat room that was saying that someone, Transcending, had the same issue that Jeanie did when she began listening to this show, but it's much, much improved at this point.
Awesome.
So I know that's happening. I know we have people occasionally listen in from the Mind Shifters group that I'll be doing again tonight at 6:30 in Crystal Lake area, and we get testimonials in our Tuesday night group on a regular basis of people who are actually doing the work and finding that it's changing their experience of life on a day-to-day basis, and it's changing the experience of their relationships. And one of the most recent ones was a gentleman whose son is home from college, and he had his first year of college was far less productive or successful than his father would have liked, and the father is somebody who attends our group on a regular basis. And he's been coming to the group for the better part of a year now and learning to adjust his goals and learning to address his son in an entirely different way. He used to just rage at him. All with good reason, of course, he would say. I always had a good reason whenever I would start screaming at my son.
Right.
But he came to me after the last group and said once again that the application of these tools has so dramatically changed his relationship with his son that his son has begun coming to his father asking how he can help him around the farm, around a project that they're doing. And not even 10 months ago, that gentleman came to see me for some private sessions because he was at wit's end because he couldn't get his son to do anything he asked him to do around their home property. And here we are just 8 months later, and the whole interaction pattern has flipped around. Because, as David says, he's actually doing the work. He's putting the pen to the paper and coming to the group on a regular basis and asking pertinent questions and then doing it differently in his life the next time he interacts with his son.
Yeah, that's what it takes. And, Jeanie and I are so blessed to hear from people so many different responses, so many different things happening in their world. Literally people on the verge of suicide. And a week later, I'm excited, I'm delighted, thank God I didn't commit suicide. And now I realize I was thinking about committing suicide over a silly reality in my mind that meant nothing except it's what my mind held. It wasn't even what was happening in my world. I thought my world was the problem. And I realized that now that I have the tools to collapse these crazy thoughts and crazy feelings in my mind, life's an awesome adventure and an awesome opportunity to live in. In the ancient teachings, they called it the Garden of Eden. That's where we're designed to live, right in that garden. And the garden was designed for us to be a place of awesome delight and enjoyment and pleasure. Those who live in hostility or fear say, no, it's been destroyed. And, the garden was only destroyed by our own hostilities and fears. And it's time for us to get back to the aliveness of a human life, to literally reclaim a human life. And, if you're ready to take your work to the next level, a few things you can do. You can go to www.whyagain.com. Worksheets are there. Start to do them. Instructions are there. Start to put them to work. You can also, if you'd like, and it's a way you can support our work in getting farther and farther around the planet, is you can go to the link that says order products. There are 16 different DVDs. There are several different CDs. The book Why Is This Happening to Me Again? There's an awesome book that we carry called The Bible for Translation, which has nothing to do with the Bible and nothing to do with translating languages, but is how to step up the frequency of your structure from the physical to the non-physical. There's a book written by Julie Haverstick for working with these tools for kids, healing children, loving children. The Kabor's manuscript, called Enlightenment, goes into the ancient Ara-maic manuscript, which just has this awesome material. There's a first century dictionary in the back of it. So all those different products. Of course, the book Why Is This Happening to Me Again is available in paperback form, and it's available on CD. They can be ordered from the website. You can also download the book free. And you may think about donating to support our work to help to keep it moving forward. If it's benefited you, jump on the website. There's a link that says donate and support us. Basically, Jeanie and I are on the road 6 to 10 months of the year, moving anywhere around the globe we're invited. We have some connections in Spain. That's where we're planning to be this fall. Take the work to Spain to open that country up for the first time. And we appreciate your support. That would be awesome. And or if you're simply ready to take your work to the next level, there is a link on our website for worksheet schedule or workshop schedule. We'll be starting a 55-day intensive. Actually, next Monday, start with a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me? An 8-day teacher training follows that. There's a 17-day Laws of Living, then a 9-day Intuitive Development, a 9-day Course in Miracles. Not sure if either of those last two are going to be actually happening with registration. It's kind of been a small summer, the last couple of summers. But we are doing the teacher training, the 9-day Why, and Laws of Living. So if you're ready to take your work to the next level, check out the schedule. It's time to come to Heartland, participate in intensive. We would love to see you. If you have any questions or thoughts as you put the pen to the paper, please call us tomorrow at 646-200-4169. And we'll look forward to hearing from you. Hope your day is blessed. You have the best year yet of your eternal life.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeanie, who present the internal Ara-maic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.myshiftersradio.com. whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.